Welcome to LifeChangers, a program designed to give solutions to the problems of daily living. My name is Dr. Kondur Abraham, and today we will be talking about marital relationships. When my wife was pregnant with our third child, someone commented to me that having a child is an expensive proposition. That is how many people look at having children. I will rephrase his statement and say that having children is a challenging but a very rewarding proposition. This is true of family life. It too is also very challenging but rewarding. What are those challenges? Let me first reflect on my Indian culture. There was a study done in the United Kingdom, and according to this study, major stressors for Indian women in England were to move out of their traditional roles, separation from their supportive relatives, and the isolation they experience from their new neighbors. One major stress for families was also handling crisis from a distance, referring to a crisis at home in India. A study was done in Canada, and according to this study, the whole question of dating and marriage causes much tension for the first generation Indians. In a survey that I conducted some time ago among Asian Indians in the United States, 22% of the sample population responded that they are experiencing job or career problems. 17% reported financial problems, 10% reported health problems, and 4% reported family problems. Based on my survey, I observed that most of the stress of the first generation stemmed from adjustment difficulties in the adoptive land. One of my respondents felt that the Asian Indian women have many more roles to play than their American counterparts. They do not have the help of servants or other relatives at home. Most of them who are employed full-time also have the responsibility of all the household work. Raising up children, in addition to all of the other work, adds to their stress. More than everything, the thoughts of what was left behind and the anxiety of an uncertain future makes things worse. I think some of these apprehensions may apply to everyone because of the conditions that we are under. Our lives have become so complex that this complexity itself is our biggest challenge. Bishop Fulton Sheen was so right when he said, "The modern man is so disassociated, so alienated from himself that he sees himself less as a personality than as a battlefield, where a civil war rages between 1,001 conflicting loyalties. He may be likened to a radio that is tuned to several stations. Instead of getting one clearly, he receives only one annoying static." Because of this complexity and the stress it produces, some people wonder if they are even happy anymore in their marital life. Let's talk about parenting. Parenting refers to raising children. This is an area where we have least amount of training. We don't ordinarily go through parenting before marriage or parenting training before marriage. Experts agree that there are three types of styles of parenting. This seems to be universal. The first one is called authoritarian. The second one is called authoritative, and the third one is permissive. An authoritarian parent is one who is extremely controlling and rigid with children. This is to the extreme. The parent who is authoritative is one who keeps good balance. He can be controlling, but he sees the need of his children to experiment with freedom and independence. A permissive parent doesn't care. His children are at liberty to do whatever they want. There are no boundaries, no curfew, and no instructions. Obviously, the second one, the authoritative parenting style, is the best of all three. If we are not careful, we could be engaging in behaviors that raise juvenile delinquents. Here is a list of tips that can raise juvenile delinquents. Give everything to your child. Do not give any moral lessons at home. Do everything for him, including his homework. Do not impose restrictions or curfews. Condemn him or her. Let him read anything he wants and see any type of movies. In general, family life can be seen in 4 stages. Stage before children are born, stage after children are born and before they start school, stage while children are in school, and finally the empty nest stage after children leaving the house. Marital happiness is usually at its peak during the initial years, but as family stress increases, marital happiness decreases. It hits the bottom when children are small and the couple has far more things to do. This is when a lot of marriages break up. According to a study, marital happiness will begin or will regain its original peak during the empty nest stage and older age. Actually, marital happiness will be based on romantic love in the beginning, but it will move towards companionate love as time goes. So there is hope if people just hang in there. I'm very happy to present to you 2 couples. All 4 of them are from 4 different countries. Dave from England, Juliana from Colombia, Mark originally from Jamaica, and Shani from India. Dave and Juliana, please tell us how you both met and where you met, and tell us a little bit about your marriage.
Well, we met in Barcelona. I was working out there and Juliana was studying. And it's actually through the church we met. My housemate, who I just began to rent a room within a flat, and we were talking at church one day, and Juliana came up to us, and she introduced us to each other, and that's how we met.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was very quick. We started going out like within a week or so, and he was only going to be in Barcelona for 3 months. So it was kind of scary, and it was like the best 3 months, and he decided to stay another 6 months or so, which was the same time I was staying. So at the very end, like a few weeks before I was ready to go, we had never spoken about marriage or anything, and we went to this park, and well, he proposed and all this, and yeah, my parents thought I was crazy to marry someone British and just so far away, and how is this going to work and all this.
Because of a stereotypical notion of British men, was it?
Yeah. So we ended up living here, which I think they're happy about because we're closer. And yeah, you can talk about our marriage.
I know you both are working. Yeah, you want to say something about your marriage? Where did that happen? In England?
No, we actually got married here.
Oh, okay.
We wanted to get married in Barcelona, because that's where a lot of my family are near. My dad's now living in Barcelona. Mm-hmm. My other family are over in England, but I have a lot of family in the States and in Peru as well. But we decided to come over here, and the long and short of it is, originally we were going back to London, but we decided to come back here because Juliana needed to get some work and experience under her belt, so to speak. So we prayed about it and felt it was right to come back here. And to save a lot of the immigration hassles, we felt it was right to also marry here at the same time, to actually move the process along.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark and Shani, you met where?
We actually met at the University of Florida, where we were both working on our undergraduate degrees, and we met through a mutual friend.
Oh, okay.
Pretty interesting enough, there's 2 dorms on campus. One's called Beatty East and Beatty West.
Right.
And from time to time we would see each other crossing the street. I'd be going back to the dorm, and perhaps Shine would be going back to class. And we didn't know each other, but through finding out through a mutual friend of ours that we were introduced, and that's when we became friends at that time.
Yeah, as one of my good friends, Lena, and Mark's good friend and roommate, Courtney, and actually the 3 of them had classes together, and then I think just in passing, going to class and so forth. Lena and Courtney and Mark were walking, and I met up with them, and that was like, I think, our first encounter, actually, just meeting, and became good friends. And from there, we both, well, Mark was a year ahead of me. He graduated in '97, I graduated in '98, and we moved back home to South Florida. And during that time, Mark was living with his mom in North Miami, living with my parents, and then we decided that we wanted to go back to school, and we did our master's together at Nova here in South Florida. And then during that time, we started thinking about marriage, and and feeling that the Lord was leading us in that direction. So knowing that it would be definitely a difficult path to cross, because I knew my parents would have a difficult time adjusting to the aspect of me choosing my husband, number one, and number two, that he wasn't Indian. So that was something we approached with a lot of prayer. We just decided to we started praying on our own quite a bit, and then we sought counsel through our local pastor, and we even went to my sister-in-law's pastor and met with him, and because I think the main concern for us at that time was I really didn't want to hurt my parents. Like I just felt like I knew that they had certain things in mind for me, and I would probably be stepping out of that. But at the same time, through prayer, we really felt that God's calling, and was for us to do this and to be married, and we just really felt that very strongly. So
we actually, in our discussions and how we would, bring it about or talk to her parents about our plans, the most important thing we found was our mutual belief in Christ. Having a strong Christian relationship was the foundation. So it was beyond just, okay, we're from two different cultures, and perhaps we really care for each other. It was beyond that. I think having a strong belief and relationship with Christ was the cornerstone to our relationship, and our prayer was that through that her parents would come to understand in time. We knew that it wouldn't be an overnight transformation, but in time, looking at both of our belief in Christ, and that we're truly looking to seek and serve God, and that would be the foundation of our relationship.
Yeah, because really, like, for Mark being from the Jamaican culture, Jamaicans are very open to. Jamaica is composed of all different nationalities, backgrounds, so to speak. There are Indians, there's Chinese, there's Spanish, there's black, there's white, there's all different races, but Indians, and my parents being first generation to leave India, come here, I think they're not accustomed to that, and being sensitive to that, their feelings, I think was important to me, and what was awesome was that Mark was so receptive to that, and he really respected that aspect of what would happen. And so
now, after marriage, what have you learned from each other, from the other person's cultural background? We'll start with you, Dave.
I think cultural diversity is an amazing thing, because and I've had the privilege, to backtrack a little, I think I've had the privilege of working in so many different situations which have allowed me to experience that in different ways, from working with a mercy relief organization between Africa and Europe, then working in Microsoft, which is a completely international organization, and also being based in London, which is so cosmopolitan itself. Then to be married with someone like Juliana, who's a complete blessing to me. I identify with her in a way because of a Spanish side. My dad's side is Spanish. Okay. But also just a complementary aspect of her personality, which adds to my, I guess, failing. But the things which I don't necessarily have the traits of, I think it's an amazing quality. And I don't know if Juliana would agree with me, but it just seems to mish and mash together, and there are things that we work on which I would never have thought in one way, but then I can understand from a culture, from an experience, maybe looking through from my dad's perspective. So it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Dave. How about you, Juliana? What did you notice about Dave's?
huge differences just in the way we interact compared to the way my parents interact and my aunts and uncles with their spouses, and every couple basically in Colombia. It's a very male-dominated society, and people aren't very like sweet and just soft-spoken towards each other at all, and it's very accepted. So, but I've been studying abroad for a while now, so it shocks me each time I go home to see this, and I never wanted that in my marriage. So I'm still like surprised each day just at how kind and sweet he is, and how helpful he is around the house with everything. Like, I can't recall my dad ever doing anything. He lives like a king. So that's just been like awesome. And also he's a great listener. We try to pray a lot and read the Bible and things like that. And my parents aren't even Christians. So just that I really see, the blessing of being married to him is just that he really is a godly man. And I've only been a Christian for 6 years. I became a Christian as an adult, and I think that if it weren't, I really needed to marry a godly man for my faith to continue growing and my path to stay steady. Because it's so easy when you're a new Christian to kind of like tend to fall back into the world, especially when your family's kind of like thinking you're a fanatic and all these things. So that's been the best part of it, really. So I look forward to having a family and just all these things.
And it's funny. It's funny what stereotypical images you have in your mind of other cultures and other people. And I remember when I first met Juliana's parents, and I remember Juliana saying to me, you know, they don't have a very good image of English men. And I think, yeah, okay, TV has a lot to blame for this.
Okay.
But I said, well, let's see how it goes. And we met for a dinner one weekend when they were visiting Barcelona, and we had a fantastic time. We had an amazing time. And I think partly because Juliana's mum has such an amazing sense of humour, and I could relate to my mum's side because they are completely wacky, and particularly my granddad, who has an amazing sense of humour as well. It was very similar, and we clicked very well. And so immediately, although they're not Christians, as Juliana said, there was a common interest to share the experience, but also share in one another's culture as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. How about you, Mark and Shani?
Right. I would definitely say that the relationship that Shani and I have definitely mirror that of David and Juliana, in that you know, Shani is very caring and very compassionate, and I think you know, just getting to know her prior to becoming married, that's one of the qualities that I found that drew me to her in our friendship, because she was very a compassionate person and caring. Also a great listener. You know, we would talk, you know, for hours. Even now we talk and we just have discussions, and that's something that I wasn't accustomed to coming from a Jamaican background. We tend, or just being a man in general, tend to be more reserved with our emotions and our feelings, and we don't really tend to talk about what's really bothering us or what's on our mind, or, you know, so I would say culturally, Shine being more open in her background and her experience growing up in her family has definitely taught me to be more expressive, to dialogue more, and that's been a huge help in our relationship. But as far as cultural differences, if you look at the Jamaican culture and other Caribbean countries as well, you'll find that independence is a big deal. You'll find sometimes, and it kind of mirrors the American culture in that you'll find single-parent homes raising children and so forth. So it's not a taboo, or it's not shunned in society in those cultures to be single and to raise a family. It's actually looked upon as, okay, well, she's doing all that she can for her kids, which is a positive thing, but the concept of having a two-parent home, it's not idealistic, so to speak. So I can speak personally for me. I grew up in a single-parent home, and my mother raised five children. And so, you know, definitely she taught me to be strong, to be resilient, to have a very strong work ethic. But what I've learned in watching and being a part of Shine's family is the unity that they have in raising, you know, Shine and her sisters, and what that has taught me. And I've always wanted to learn and grow from my experience. And I said that one day when I'm married and I have a family of my own, that I would be very active and part of raising children and having that one unit. I think it's very important. I think that's the image that God has for us in His Word. That it says in His Word that He does not prefer divorce. He prefer that we would work out our differences. And I think actually differences are a blessing because we can learn. Shine compliments me. I could say that when we first met, I wasn't a very organized person, and I'm still learning to be. I'm more of a big picture type person, and Shine's more very detail oriented. And she has really blessed me with helping me to be more organized and be more, in tune with, looking at specific things. And so I've grown tremendously because of her. And she's also a great, just support because, as I mentioned, her father is actually an evangelist. He does a lot of mission work. And so there was a strong sense of prayer, growing up in their home. And although I would say my family's also Christian, but I think we evolved over time and became stronger believers over time. And so towards my adult life, I became a stronger Christian. And Shine, I would say, having that strong sense of Christianity instilled in her from when she was very young definitely helped me to grow and develop. Yeah.
What do you think, Shani?
I would say everything he says about me is what I feel about him. But I mean, I think, to answer one of your first questions, which was in terms of culturally speaking, what I admire a lot about Mark's family is, and the Jamaican culture is that they have such a joyful spirit, and I think that in our home, our parents, they love us and they want us to have a good time, but it's always like within boundaries, and you can have fun at home, but when you're out you have to have a certain reserved sense and like an attitude, a reserved sense of attitude. But like I think I can say especially like my sister-in-laws, and they're just so fun-loving. They're always laughing wherever they go. They don't hold back their joy, and I think that's important. And I think sometimes Mark, he's great at making me laugh. Even if I'm like in a bad mood, he'll try to like say something silly and make me laugh, and then I'm not upset anymore. Whereas growing up, I remember, if someone's upset in the house, you just stay quiet. You just let them, kind of work themselves, out on their own, and whatever they feel, they'll eventually get over it. But I love that, he carries with him this sense of, laughter and joy that I completely see as a part of, I believe, I see in his, in the culture as a whole, just not just from my in-laws, but even interacting with other friends from the Jamaican background. But I think in, that way, that's one thing. But I think just overall, I can't begin to say enough how much Mark is my support, and God has given me him as my earthly strength, so to speak, because God is, of course, our strength, but as a husband, he is truly just the rock in our relationship. He brings me really, I can't, I just, I don't feel that, I feel that God knew when he, put us together that I needed him, and, I know he said that, he needs me, but I feel I need him more than he probably needs me, really and truly. And I mean, he shows that through his gentleness, his kindness, his meekness, his humble heart, and his love for the Lord. And I mean, those are all of the, the traits that I admire in him, really. But
let me now very briefly address another issue that is probably one major destructive force in marital relationship. The word that describes this issue is stress. What is stress? There are two Sanskrit words which describe stress. The first word is klesha, which means to torment, to cause pain, or to conflict. The second word is dukkha, which means the feeling of stress as a result of the world around a person. One common response to stress is fleeing, and our current divorce rate does explain this fleeing mentality. But how about fighting stress and keeping the marriage? In the Bible, we read, endure hardness as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. In other words, endure stress as a good soldier of Christ. You don't expect soldiers to be fleeing, do you? In another reference, Christ said, what God has put together, let no man put asunder. Remember, the source of stress can be in relationships, but do not let relationship issues put asunder a marriage. Now, here are some simple ways of dealing with stress. Simplify your lifestyle. Train your mind to cope and face your stressor mentally before you face it head on. Reduce the sources of stress and avoid commitments that you cannot handle. Be economical and live within your means. Just as Christ said, make sure you have enough money before you attempt to build a house. Overcome negative social pressure to conform and to belong. And finally, have a spiritual attitude on things. We read in the Bible, take heed and beware of covetousness, for a man's life consisteth not in the abundance of things which he possesses. Let's talk about communication problems. Most couples in troubled marriages list the inability to communicate as their number one problem. We need to accept each other in love, listen to each other with an open mind, and communicate by choosing words carefully. We should also have genuine appreciation for each other. It has been said by Dale Carnegie, most husbands and wives run away because they are not appreciated. Both husbands and wives would want to be appreciated for what they contribute to the family. Let me suggest some things to improve communication. Be a good listener. Choose your words carefully. Be swift to hear and slow to speak. Mentally rehearse what you have to say before you say it. Speak the truth in love. Avoid words like, there you go again. Instead of saying, I'm angry, say, I'm annoyed. In other words, reduce the intensity of your emotion. Don't use your words that will have the effects of atom bombs. Keep your anger under control. In dealing with anger, remember the following. Identify the source of your anger. Dispute your interpretation of the source. Think of what is best for you in the long run. Do not engage in destructive behaviors. Refocus. Wait for your anger to leave before you deal with the situation. At least wait until you are in control of your anger. Marriage is not a dream. It has been said that after a couple are married, they discover themselves to be in a problem-solving reality. Marriage will not only bring out the best in you and in your spouse, but it can also bring the worst out of both of you. Marriage may bring many surprises. The areas where the surprises are most likely to be found are in your mate's ways of managing stress and conflict, and in his or her personal habits. Success in marriage, however, requires bending and blending. The ability to remain flexible, the ability to negotiate, and the ability to give and take. Questions that couples need to ask are, how flexible am I? How cooperative am I? Am I a good negotiator? Friends, thank you for watching, and I hope you will tune in again next time. Please consider sponsoring these programs if these are helpful to you. All contributions are tax deductible in the United States. Please write your checks to LifeChangers Broadcasting Corp. Please also write to me with your feedback as well as your request for any of my books. you.